Welcome back to another episode of the Flying G Huddle, your inside look at Gladwin football. I'm Casey Campbell. I'm your host. Pleased to be joined every week by my co-host, Gladwin head football coach, Marc Jarstfer. Hello, coach. How are you?
Doing great.
Well, coming off another win against this time Sanford Meridian. You beat them 43-0. Let's take you through the game. And what a game it was. Only one score in the first quarter. It was Jace Massey and an 80-yard run to make it 7-0 at the end of the first.
Yeah, that game kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start. We were a little bit banged up heading into this game with kind of that physical nature of the Clare game the week before, and so we had a few new faces in different roles, including, Jace Massey still filling in at quarterback in that one. And so, I think it took us a drive or two to really get our feet underneath us and get going again. But once we got going, we were kind of off to the races and had, a tremendous amount of offensive success. And so, like I mentioned early on, we didn't have much going offensively on our first drive or two, but eventually, Jace kind of broke one up the middle for that long 80-yard touchdown run.
Yeah. All right. That was 7-0 at the end of the first. The second is where you kind of also got going there. Jace Massey scored again. This time was a 55-yard run for a touchdown to make it 14-0. And then Braden Ritchie ran the ball for he ran a 2-yard run, drove it down the field to make it 21-0. And then Jace Massey scored again to make it 27-0. But you guys failed the 2-point conversion on that one. So a lot of scoring in the second.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jace is just such a special athlete, like we kind of detailed, and in the conclusion of that Clare game. And you see his name, often in the stat sheet here. And so just finding creative ways to get, the ball or keep the ball in his hands at the quarterback position was, what we were trying to figure out, because the offense definitely looks a little bit different with him in that spot. And so we had a good complement there, though. What Jace was able to do with some of that perimeter run game and those sorts of things was really set up by our success on the inside run game by our other running backs, and because you won't see it on the stat sheet other than that Braden Ritchie touchdown drive. But Braden Ritchie was 8 carries for 48 yards and a touchdown. Preston Willard was 7 carries for 40 yards. And so, when you have almost 100 yards of production on 15 carries up the middle, that's able to keep people honest, and they really kind of complemented each other pretty well. And so, we were, lucky to get off to a really good start in that first half with having the uncertainty of new faces and new places, but we were able to finish the half strong. Where it says the failed 2-point conversion on the stat sheet, that was just a low snap that kind of rolled back, and so we ended up having to pick it up and try taking off with it, which was obviously unsuccessful. So 27-0 going into the halftime break.
Yeah, of course, third quarter you picked up right where you left off. A 9-yard run by, I'm not going to try to pronounce this name, so you do it.
Yes, so Nori Cahigas. That was his second touchdown of the year. He's just a really elusive, smaller type of slot receiver, and he had a phenomenal week of practice this week. And so with some of these other guys being out with injuries and stuff like that, we kind of elevated him into a bigger role. And same thing, he had a really nice game as well. He had 2 carries for 15 yards and a touchdown. And then he caught a few, bubble screens for, I think he had 3 receptions for 36 yards. And so, having 5-6 touches, 50 yards and a touchdown out of somebody who hasn't had a lot of opportunities this year was good to see. And he carried over how he was able to play in practice into the game and really provide a little spark for us offensively. So that was good to see, and obviously that put us up to 34-0.
And then a fumble recovery, by Harvey Grove, 19 yards to get it to 41-0, and then you guys got a safety too.
Yeah, and so the Harvey Grove fumble recovery was a snap over the quarterback's head, and he's just such a high motor kid. You know, he just really gets after it, and so it's no surprise that he was the first one back there and able to land on it. I know we had a couple other linemen right close that were trying to fight for it as well, but Harvey came up with it, and that was cool to see. You know, he's a freshman playing on the varsity team. He's been phenomenal up to this point, playing outside linebacker, and he's going to be a really special player. And so to see, his high motor kind of rewarded and able to pick up that fumble recovery was a big deal. There's another opportunity as well at the end of the game. Sanford had driven the ball down and got it inside the 5. And they had like a bobbled snap or like a bad mesh. I don't remember which one, but either way the ball ended up on the ground, and he likely would have had like a 98-yard fumble recovery for a second touchdown in this game, but one of our other linemen was swiping at it, and they blew it dead and said he had possession of it down there before Harvey picked it up. And so Harvey's just always around the ball, and he was able to get on that one. The safety was kind of a unique thing as well. They were backed right up inside their like 2-3 yard line, something like that, and it was the classic, punter puts the heels on the back of the end zone, and then a high snap, and it kind of carried him to step out of the back of the end zone, and so we got the safety there to kind of round out the scoring. But overall, a really good team effort, and from a lot of different guys that you're not used to seeing contribute as much in the stat sheets as well. And so that was good to see them step up and play a complete game, probably as complete of a game as we've had all year.
43-0, the final there. Overall takeaways from the game.
Like I just mentioned, the fact that there's so many new faces in the lineup, and those guys were really able to step up. Like I obviously talked about Nori Cahigas and his contributions and filling in at slot receiver and doing some good things for us. A defensive guy, Matthew Lechner is another one who's bumped up from taking reps at linebacker onto the defensive line and is playing our nose position. And he's just strong and athletic. And you take all the thinking out of the game when you're playing nose. You just allow him to be strong and athletic. And he was making plays like crazy in the defense or in the offensive backfield from that position. And he's another one that's probably earned himself a little bit more time on the field. And so seeing all these new faces in the lineup and seeing them perform was a good thing for us, a good thing for them. And hopefully it'll make us a more complete team going forward, through the end of this season and into the playoffs.
All right. So, well, it's time for the best part of the show. It's time for you to award your MVPs for this week.
Yeah, and so offensively, I'm going to kind of go away from the skilled positions and give it to an offensive lineman. This week, I think Logan Klein is deserving of it. He's a 4th-year varsity starter for us at tackle, and he just like when he is on, it makes it easy for anybody in the backfield to have a good game. He's just a mauler in the run game. He's a really solid pass protector. And when you look at our stat sheet, I think that offensively we had 420 yards of offense, and that was including 342 rushing yards. And so that stuff isn't possible without a really good offensive line, and he's kind of leading the way from the tackle spot in that position. So he's our offensive MVP. Our defensive MVP this week is Harvey Grove, and I kind of already detailed some of the things that he was able to do, but just super high motor. He really takes the game serious. Is for a freshman, it's unbelievable how much he's been able to like buy into the scouting reports and really study those, and he carries his scouting report everywhere with him, and he's constantly watching film. He's becoming more and more of a vocal leader on our team. He's always bringing the excitement. It doesn't matter if we were up 43-0 or the game was just starting. He's always hooting and hollering and just having a great time playing. And that kind of energy is infectious for our team. And then obviously, he showed up in a big way. I think he had 4 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. a fumble recovery for a touchdown, with a potential opportunity for a second one of those as well. And so great young player. We're excited, to see how he can continue to develop and finish out this year, and really excited for him for years to come as well. And then special teams this week, Trace Corlew normally does our holding on our extra points, and he's kind of been, battling some soreness and stuff like that. And so, we opted to take him out. And Colin McDonald is going to be our special teams MVP, because he was able to fill in at holder on our extra points, and without any reps this year. It's something that he's done in the past, but he's an extremely smart kid, understands the game very well. And we threw him right out there. I saw him sitting there on the sideline, and we're like, "Hey, Trace is out." I'm like, "Colin, you've snapped before. Let's go do it." And so he ran right out there, and he really didn't have a bad hold at all. And so, like I said, the one failed 2-point conversion was a bad snap, and so we just tried to make do with it. But as far as the ones that came right to him or were close, he was efficient at getting it on the tee, and allowed us to be successful with our extra points. And so that's huge. Just having guys like that can step in and play a role. He's a captain, a senior, and did a really good job on special teams for us.
Well, it's time for another fun segment we started last week. Marc gets to talk about a staff member. Last week you talked about your right-hand man, of course, Cody Emiot. Who are you talking about this week?
This week I'm going to introduce Jeff Goodwin. He is he's one of our defensive back coaches, wide receiver coaches. I would say arguably he is Coach Emiot's right-hand man. He is just relentless in his film preparation and scouting, and pretty much every week you can look on Huddle and he's going to be in that number 1 spot or number 2 spot of film watch for the week. And he has a really good understanding of the game. The kids love him. He does a great job coordinating all that defensive back play and communicating that kind of stuff to them. They have group chats, where they're constantly talking with players, and he's kind of leading a lot of those efforts. And so he's been a phenomenal guy to have on. When I got hired at Gladwin, he obviously wanted to interview for a position on the staff, and he was a guy that had coached last year's senior class through the youth ranks for quite a few years. And so we brought him on staff as a JV offensive coordinator that first year that I was in Gladwin, and he did a phenomenal job, transitioning those guys from the youth program into our system, and just really did a nice job. And then the following year, we saw how much time he was putting in to film and preparation, and how detail oriented he was. And so we decided we need to have this guy up at the varsity level. And so obviously, he kind of followed through with last year's senior class all the way up, and he loves it, and we love having him. And so he's back working hard as ever. And so great dude to have on staff, and a very important position and part of our staff.
Absolutely. All right. Well, of course, the season goes along. The road trip continues for the month of September. You guys are on your way to Pinconning this next week, the final road game of the regular season. After this, you will have 3 games at home for the entire month of October. So what's it going to be like heading into this last road game of the season? And what do you guys got to do to get to 6-0?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be obviously good to be done with this road trip when we get through this week, and kind of get back to our home field and in front of our home fans and all of that stuff. But this week we have Pinconning, and Walter Mulligan is their head coach, and he's really done a phenomenal job of creating some energy there and turning the program in the right direction. And so, obviously they had been on quite a long losing streak up until this year, and they were able to get a couple wins early on. And so, excitement is high in Pinconning right now. And like I said, he's just done a nice job of getting the kids to start to buy in. He talks about, when I talk to him often, he talks about, their weight room numbers, and those have been consistently increasing, and guys are buying into their offensive and defensive schemes. And so you start to see some of that translate onto the field, because there's no question that they're heads and shoulders, above where they've been in the past. And so that's a big credit to him. But just like any other week, that Pinconning is going to show up. They're going to be ready to play. I believe they're 2-3 right now. But a win over us would really change the trajectory of that program. And so I'm sure they're hungry for that, and they'll give us their best shot. And so, we'll make sure our kids are prepared like we do every week, and give it our best shot on Friday.
That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Flying G Huddle. Thank you so much for watching. Tune in next week when we'll recap Pinconning and get ready for a big showdown week 7 against Pontiac Notre Dame Prep. They're coming all the way to Gladwin to take on the Flying G. So we'll talk to you next week on the Flying G Huddle.